I used to think the scariest thing about the subway was the germs, or the occasional loudmouth drunk. But after that rainy Tuesday in November, I've realized that the true horrors of the city don't scream, they whisper. I was 22 at the time, living in a cramped apartment in Brooklyn, and working a soul-sucking administrative job in Midtown. My shift ended at 11 p.m., which meant I usually caught the N train just as the crowds were thinning out. That night, the air was heavy. It smelled of wet concrete and ozone. I swiped my card, walked onto the platform, and noticed the station was unusually empty. Just me, a flickering fluorescent light, and the distant drip, drip, drip of water from a rusted pipe. When the train finally screeched to a halt, I stepped into a car that was completely vacant, or so I thought. I sat down near the center doors and tried to lose myself in a podcast. A few stops later, at a station that felt more like a tomb than a transit hub, a man got on. He didn't look like a threat at first. He wore a long, beige trench coat and a flat cap pulled low over his eyes. But instead of sitting in any of the dozens of empty seats, he walked past all of them and sat directly across from me. The car was 60 feet long, and we were the only two people in it. He sat so close that if I had reached out my foot, I would have kicked his shins. I didn't look up from my phone, but I switched my screen to the camera app so I could use the reflection to watch him. He wasn't moving. He wasn't even fidgeting. He just sat there, hands folded in his lap, staring at the top of my head. "Do you know where you're going?" His voice was thin, dry, like paper rubbing together. I didn't answer. I just adjusted my earbuds, pretending I couldn't hear him. "I know where you're going," he whispered, a bit louder this time. "Fourth floor, blue door, the one with the wreath, that's losing its needles." My heart didn't just race, it stopped. I live on the 4th floor, I have a blue door, and yes, my mother had sent me a dried cedar wreath 3 weeks prior. I felt a cold sweat break out across my collarbone. I hadn't seen this man in my neighborhood. I didn't recognize him at all. I stood up as the train began to slow. I intended to sprint, but as I stood, he stood. He moved with a strange, fluid grace. When the doors opened, I stepped out. I could hear his footsteps behind me. Heavy, deliberate, thuds on the concrete. I doubled back suddenly, ducking into a closing elevator, but he stuck his hand between the doors. The sensors retracted them. He stepped inside, smiling a yellow, crooked smile. He didn't press a button. He just stood in the corner, humming. "The lock on your window is loose," he said, quietly, as the elevator rose. "You should fix that. It's a long drop." The elevator opened. I ran. I didn't go home. I ran 3 blocks to a 24-hour diner and sat at the counter, shaking. I looked out the window and saw him, standing across the street, under a street lamp. He stood there for an hour, just watching the diner door before melting back into the shadows. I didn't sleep at my apartment for a week. When I finally went back to move my things out, I checked the window. He was right. The latch had been pried, and there was a single beige button sitting on my windowsill.